Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm sharing my eyeshadow collection. So if you'd like to see that, please stay tuned. So I'd asked you guys on Instagram if you wanted to see my makeup collection, and the ones who replied did say yes. So here I am sharing my eyeshadow collection, and these are mostly palettes. So I keep all my eyeshadow palettes in one drawer, so that's what we're going to go through today. I do have a few single eyeshadows and I do keep them in a separate drawer along with my glitter, so I might discuss those when I share my glitter collection. But for now, let's look at my eyeshadow palettes. Now, this is by no means a small collection. I'm very aware of that. I'm also aware that one person doesn't need so many eyeshadow palettes. It's only like so much square feet of area that you have. How many colors or eyeshadows can you really put there at a time? But I don't know, I love colors, I love eyeshadows, I love creating new looks, so yeah. And please bear in mind that this was collected over the last, I would say 7 to 8 years, more so recently, but few of them are quite old, but I still use them. Some are just in my collection as a collector's item. I don't use them much anymore as new products come out and you have better quality eyeshadows. So yeah, let's get started. By the way, if you do enjoy these makeup collection videos, please don't forget to hit that like button and also consider subscribing. So I do keep most of my makeup in 2 of these Alex drawers from IKEA. So all my eyeshadow palettes are in this particular drawer. So let's look inside. So I'm going to zoom you guys in closer so you can have a better look at the palettes. Alright guys, so this is what it looks like inside my drawer. So I'm going to show you the different sections of my eyeshadow palette drawer. In the front here I have most of my smaller and Viseart palettes in the front here. Then I go into some of my larger palettes right here, and in the inner corner of this drawer I keep palettes that I don't use that often, or palettes that are too long to fit into any of these sizes. So let's start with the front section, starting from this corner. So the first palette I have is Viseart Petite Pro, and this is what this tiny thing looks like. It is beautiful, it's great for traveling, has just everyday neutral shades that I really love. Next I have 2 of the Theory palettes from Viseart. This is in the shade Chroma, which is excellent for creating a black smoky eye or a gray smoky eye. This next one is the shade Minx, and I absolutely love this. It has these beautiful warm tones. Next I have these 3 Viseart palettes. This is the Neutral Matte palette, this is the Warm Matte palette, and this is the Dark Matte palette. These are my favorite matte eyeshadows, and I get quite a bit of use from these. Then I have 3 more eyeshadow palettes from Viseart. This is the Editorial palette, this is the Sultry Muse palette, and I have the second one of the Editorial because when I got this ordered from Sephora and it arrived broken or cracked, so they sent me a replacement, which is this guy. So that's what's in the front right here. Then I have my Persona Identity palette, which has stunning neutrals. Again, I love this. So as you can see, I'm a sucker for neutrals and warm eyeshadows. Then I have the NARS Narcissist palette, which looks like this. Now, I haven't really gotten much use from this palette just because it's mostly cool toned, but I've kept it in the front right here, so I push myself and try and get some use from this palette. Then I have the Makeup Forever Artist Shadows Volume 2 palette, which looks like this. It has some beautiful colors. And on this side I have 3 of my drugstore Wet n Wild palettes. This first one is Comfort Zone, the next one is Petal Pusher, and the third one is Blue Had Me at Hello. So those 3 live here. And here I have some of my favorite eyeshadows, which is by Makeup Atelier. Now this beautiful warm brown palette is called Honey Brown, and then this greeny blue palette is called Amazon. Both are amazing. The formula of these eyeshadows is stunning. Then here I have 2 sleek eyeshadow palettes, and these are the Ultra Mattes version 1 and 2. They're just all matte eyeshadows. So this is the first one, and I've used this palette for the Rihanna tutorial. And I'm going to link it as a card on the screen if you want to check it out. The second one looks like this, all matte eyeshadows. Then I have two of the Smashbox palettes. This is the one in bold and this is a Blaze. Bold one has these shades. And the warm one looks like this, and more warm neutrals. And of course I have the Dose of Colors Daisy Katie collab. These eyeshadows are amazing. Now moving on to these bigger palettes in the back here. Just going to pull the drawer back further. So first I have the IT Cosmetics Naturally Pretty palette, which is their volume 1. It's just basic, easy to wear neutral shades. These blend out really easily. Next I have the Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette. I really haven't used this palette much other than swatching it, so I should use this more often. I don't know why I don't, but it smells divine. Purple is calling my name, so maybe I'll use it soon. Next I have my row of Urban Decay Naked palettes. So starting with Naked 1, this is what that looks like. Oldie but goodie. This is probably my first high-end eyeshadow palette. Then I have the Naked Smoky, which looks like this. I have Naked 2. This has, I think, 3 mattes. All the others are satin or shimmery shades. Next is the Naked 3 palette, which I do not like at all. It is a bunch of similar shades, and it's in this pink, mauvey, cool tone family, so I really don't like this palette. But my husband got it for me, so that's why it's staying in this drawer. Moving on, next is my favorite Naked palette, which is the Naked Heat palette, which is this beautiful array of warm, gorgeous tones that actually show up on women of color. So this is a palette I absolutely love. Then I have the much loved Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette, and I would highly recommend this to anybody who loves warm colors. I then have the Urban Decay Electric palette, which has a bunch of super bright colors. Now I have used some of these shades in tutorials. I'm just going to link those tutorials on the screen right now. And then I have 3 Inglot custom made palettes. So this first one has some gold shades, some burgundy brown shades, some greens, and a few purples. And this purple shade in this corner is the only matte in the palette. All the others are either satin or shimmery shades. This next palette is mostly a warm palette except for this corner shade right here. So it has this yellow, neon orange, rusty orange and brown tones. And many of these shades are matte in this palette while some are satin. And then I have this third one, which I think is just all over the place. It has just that one bright purple, but mostly cool tone shades, I think, except also that rusty orangey shade in the middle. So those are my Inglot palettes. Next we have Meet Matte Nude palette by The Balm. And it's just a nice array of matte shadows, and these shadows are quite large. But unfortunately I haven't used much of these ever since I got the Viseart eyeshadows. But these were truly the first, I think, full matte eyeshadow palettes. And these are really good if you haven't tried them yet. Next we have the Morphe collaboration with Kathleen Lights, and this was such a beautiful limited edition palette, I believe. It's just again a bunch of neutrals and has a couple of pop of colors, and I really like the quality of these eyeshadows actually. And then right next to that affordable palette is the super expensive Natasha Denona Star palette. And this retails for $169. So this is probably the most expensive eyeshadow palette I own. And hopefully this will be the last of these. And as you can see, this gets quite messy because of all the glitter coming off from those pans. I think I'm getting around to using more of these, and I think I'm starting to enjoy them and to layer different shadows to create different looks. So it's an ongoing process with this one. Next I have a Z palette where I've put all my Colourpop eyeshadows. So these 3 rows on the top are all Colourpop eyeshadows. The Colourpop eyeshadows are just beautiful and very pigmented, easy to blend shadows. Next I have 2 of these Makeup Forever palettes. This one is filled with Makeup Geek eyeshadows. The foiled ones are on the top, whereas the regular ones are at the bottom. And I have named all of them at the back right here, so anytime I'm using these I can quickly reference back to the shade. So that's my Makeup Geek palette. And the second palette is full of some of my MAC eyeshadows, mostly neutral browny purple tones. Again, tons of neutrals, and I have so many similar shades because when I first started with makeup, I used to wear more natural brownie tones, so that's why I have such a range of neutral mattes. But this is a palette I cherish because it got me into makeup and it's really special, so it's always going to stay with me, all these MAC eyeshadows. Now moving on to the palettes in the back. This first one I have is by The Balm and it's called Nude Tude. And it has beautiful array of shades. I just don't use them, I don't know why. They're really soft and buttery and very easy to blend. I need to do tutorials, I think, dedicated to each palette. That's the only way I'm going to get around using each of these. Next are some of my favorite palettes of all time. These are the Lorac Pro palettes, especially the first one, which is the black one. And this is truly special to me because this is the palette I use for my wedding and just has this beautiful array of neutral everyday tones. So the top row is full of mattes while the bottom is full of shimmery shades, so you can create so many looks from this palette. I really enjoy this, so if you're a beginner, I would highly recommend getting this one. Next we have the Lorac 2, which is more cool toned, so I don't get as much use from this. I just see a couple of warm tones in here, but it's still a really good palette. I love the green, the bronze, the purple, the blue, the peachy brown tones, the shade Mocha and all of those, so I do like most of the shades from this palette. Next I have two of the Makeup Forever custom palettes, and again these are just neutral brown shades. One of them is slightly red and purple and one is gold, but these three are just matte neutral shades. Perfect for my crease. And then I have this one palette called Downtown Browns by Black Radiance. And I was just curious because this reminded me of the Wet n Wild palette, but again I haven't played around much with this palette, it's almost brand new. Then my friend was selling Avon, so I picked up this palette from her, and it's just these easy to wear neutral peachy brown tones. And I don't wear it anymore, so I should probably donate it. Then we have the Wet n Wild Fergie collection, which had these nice orangey brown tones, but again these shades were not too pigmented, so I was disappointed with this palette. It'll probably show up in my declutter video. And then we have the NYX Love in Rio palette, which is just this beautiful cute little purple palette. And I got this when I didn't have too many purple eyeshadows. Then I have yet another palette from NYX, really old one. It's the 10 color eyeshadow palette from the Runway collection. It has this big size mirror in it, and it has again neutral shade. And then I have the Smashbox eyeshadow palette, which is meant for brown eyes, and it has two rows of shades. The first row is supposed to give you a soft look, and the second one is supposed to give you a smoky. The shades are good and creamy and easy to work with, but just that I'm not drawn to the palette as a whole. Next we have a Makeup Forever palette. I can't remember what this is called, but this is what it looks like. It has some of these olive green tones, some brown and peachy tones as well. And then I have one of my older MAC palettes, so again I have some more shadows here, and the others are still in original containers, so they're not depotted yet. But I do prefer the Makeup Forever palette because I can have more shadows in one place instead of this palette, so that's why I'm trying to get rid of these. And then I have this beautiful palette called Rockstar Palette by The Balm again, and it's called Balm Jovi. And these eyeshadows are named after heavy metal bands, so it's really cool. And it also comes with their best-selling highlighter, which is the Merry Luminizer. And it also contains a blush and two lip products at the bottom, which has a separate sleeve, which is excellent because then the powders don't get mixed with this lip product. It's a good travel palette, very lightweight. Then we have the Urban Decay Wise 2 palette, which has an array of shades. So there's greens, there's blues, there's purples, pinks, bronze, nude tones, and darker colors. It's not a palette I would travel with, but it's good for certain shades, so I do like that bronze and that green shade right there. Then I have another Z palette where I've depotted some of my Wet n Wild palettes. So I have Walking on Eggshells on the top left, Knock on Wood on the top right, and then Silent Treatment on the bottom left. Then we have I Got Good Genes on the bottom right. And that's it guys, that's all my eyeshadow palettes. So I hope you enjoyed watching my eyeshadow palette collection, and let me know in the comment section below if you have any of these palettes or which of these is your favorite. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!
Open eye, feel the waves cut through me.